too long didn't watch. Number 1, studios barely matter for the most part. The core stuff is much more important. Number 2, which studios currently is in a lot of financial trouble, so handling a big project like Vinland Saga might even be beyond them. Number 3, most animators are gonna be freelancers anyway. Contrary to popular beliefs, it's not just 5 animators tied to their desks in MAPPA studios who are being forced to work on 6 projects simultaneously. No, there are different staff members and mostly freelance animators working on each of these projects, and the quality of one project is not going to affect the quality of the other for the most part. Now let's get into the actual video. Non-casual anime watchers, or NCAW for short. These guys are extremely dangerous people online, of course. So I'd say the average anime watcher is a casual watcher. They don't know much, so they don't spout bullshit. The issue with NCAWs is that they know stuff. They are non-casual watchers. And since they know stuff, they believe that everything they know is 100% accurate, and they're extremely loud about it. These people want to learn, so they try to do their research. For example, they search up, hey, why is Ufotable's animation so good? And they see one stupid fucking meme that says, unlimited budget works, and they take that for fact. Fate Zero had to be split into 2 seasons because the staff quite literally ran out of budget midway. They just ran out of money, nothing left. So why does Fate Zero look good? Unlimited budget. So as a former NCAW myself, I think it's my duty to educate you people. And I'm going to make sure that by the end of this video, none of you will be NCAWs and will turn into NCAWs, which is short for non-casual anime enjoyer. So let's begin. Now, my number 1 point is that the studio does not matter for the most part. I will explain the for the most part later, but right now let's just leave it at studio does not matter. It is the core stuff that is most important. The studio is not one person who's just sitting there making anime. No, the studio is exactly that. It's a studio. Ask any NCAW, which are the 2 studios that make the worst animations? Ask yourself. The most common answer is going to be Studio Dean and JC Staff. For obvious reasons, let's take Studio Dean's works. Their most popular work is Higurashi, which is F-tier animation. The key animations are pathetic, laughable even. They worked on the first Fate series, which was also dog shit. Recently, they did 7 Deadly Sins and they didn't do it justice. They also did Konosuba, which is one of the best animated comedy shows ever made. So why does Konosuba look so good? Because for Konosuba, the producers hired a good staff. The director, and most importantly, the character designer and chief animation director. The director and character designer are super important because they have a lot of connections with the industry, because in the past, they were probably animators themselves. The character designer of Konosuba, he loves exaggerated fluid animation, so he made character designs that could be easily animated. And he also worked as an animation director for Konosuba. The animation director directs the animation, it's in the name. He makes sure that the character designs are consistent, and in this case, he just gave full creative control to the animators. He was just like, you know what? Form does not even matter. Fluidity matters. And yeah, he has a lot of influence over the industry. Big name freelance animators, they wanted to work on Konosuba because of this character designer. If you want to see more of this character designer's works, he has worked on a hentai named Kyuketsuki, Anal Vampire. On a scale of 0 to 10 in fucked upness, I'd put it at a solid 6 out of 10, which is, yeah, not high, but it's still extremely fucked up because hentai can get really fucked up. So if you want to watch Kyuketsuki Anal Vampire, you gotta have some level of experience with hentai. So yeah, just a warning. Another thing that really surprised me about Konosuba is the incredible digital effects. You don't see digital effects of this quality in anime. And digital effects, of course, I'm sure it's not done in-house in Studio Dean. Studio Dean does not have a good digital effects team. So it was probably outsourced. And whichever team it was outsourced to, did a really good job with the digital effects in Konosuba. So once the 2 seasons finished, it was announced that the movie is going to be done by a different studio. And fans did not know if they were supposed to be happy or sad On one side of the argument, it is totally normal to want Studio Dean to keep doing the show because Studio Dean is doing such an incredible job with it. So it makes you want to say, damn, I wish Studio Dean continued doing Konosuba. Which is an extremely weird thing to say. NCAW will fucking roast the shit out of you for saying that. And on the other side, yeah, as I said, you want to be happy because Studio Dean, one of the worst studios, is not going to do Konosuba anymore. But again, Studio Dean is doing a good job with it. And then it was finally announced that it's going to be JC staff doing the movie. They were talking about raiding Studio Dean, forcing them to work on the Konosuba movie so that their favorite anime does not get ruined by JC staff. And what was the final product like? The final product, the Konosuba movie under JC staff, looked pretty much identical to the TV show by Studio Dean, except it was movie quality. So that's more everything, more fluid Sakuga movement, a better composite, and even better digital effects. Which is the crazy part because the digital effects was already outsourced. So the same team that the digital effects was outsourced to also worked on the movie with JG staff. So now how did this happen? It's because even though they switched studios, the core staff remained the same. The core staff, the most important people, the director, character designer, and chief animation director. The chief animation director and character designer are usually the same person. So it's really just the character designer and the director. And those people were the same in Studio Dean's Konosuba and JC Staff's Konosuba. The main Sakuga animator for Konosuba is Shu Sugita. He specializes in effects animation and he did an incredible job in the movie and the TV series. And many other animators who worked on Studio Dean as freelancers also worked on JC Staff as freelancers for the same Konosuba project because the core staff remained the same. Now let's take another example. Haikyuu, it was done by Production IG and season 1, 2, 3, S tier animation. And then season 4, Haikyuu to the top. It looked nothing like the first 3 seasons. The movements were much more stiff. Yes, we got Sakuga sometimes, but the Sakuga was not on model Sakuga. It was way more smeary. It was more Naruto versus Pain like Sakuga. I personally enjoyed it, but there were a lot of people who disliked the stylistic choices in season 4 and they preferred season 1, 2, 3. Even though there is no change in the studios. Season 1, 2, 3 was Production IG, Haikyuu to the top is also Production IG. So why the difference? Because the director changed and the chief animation director changed. The character designer is actually the same despite the character designs looking completely different, and the character designs look different because it's very common for character designers to completely redraw character designs when the core staff changes. And when they remake the character designs for the new core staff, they usually stick to the manga. We've seen this so many times. It's a very common thing. We've seen it so many times. We saw it with Attack on Titan. Like, which studio's character designs are iconic anime character designs. But when MAPPA did it, they can't really replicate which studio's character designs. They could have done a completely unique character design, but it's just a safe bet to just stick to the manga. Or also, Yahari ore no seishun love combo wa machigaeteru. I could also have said Origaeru, but I wanted to flex my Japanese skills. Hey, it probably sounded like trash anyway. Sidelining here, the first season of that show did not have good animation, but the character designs, they were already iconic. With season 2, Studio Feel picked it up, and the animation was so much better. Except the character designs, they no longer had the personality of season 1 character designs. They changed the character designs and they stuck to the light novel version. It's a safe bet and they'll always do it. So when Vinland Saga goes from mid studios to MAPPA, are the character designs going to change? No. In Haikyuu's case, the character designer and animation director were different people. It is very common in the industry to have the character designer and the animation director be the same people. Why? Because the animation director is tasked with keeping the character designs consistent, and who knows the character designs better than the character designer himself? In Vinland Saga, the character designer and the animation director is the same person, and they are also going to be working on MAPPA. In fact, the entire core staff is remaining consistent. The director, character designer / chief animation director, even the animation producer is the same person as it was in Witch Studios. So to summarize this, Konosuba looked amazing even with the studio change because the core staff remained consistent. Haikyuu to the top did not look as good as the previous seasons, even though the studio was the same because the core staff changed. For Vinland Saga, even though the studio is changing, the core staff is remaining the same. You have nothing to worry about in terms of quality. It will look just as good as Witch Studios Vinland Saga or even better. NCAWs are spreading a bunch of myths and they have their own idea about how anime is made. Like, I saw a person saying, I just don't think MAPPA's style works for Vinland Saga. Which style? What exactly is MAPPA's style? Is it Attack on Titan? Is it Jujutsu Kaisen? Is it Dorohedoro? Is it Idaten Deities? Is it Banana Fish? Is it Punchline? All these shows look completely different from each other. I don't understand what MAPPA's style is. Style should only be associated with studios when the project is being made in-house, like Studio Trigger projects or Ufotable products. Yes, they have their own style. Ufotable projects look similar in the composite. Trigger shows look similar in terms of animation because most of it is done in-house. Most of MAPPA's animation is not done in-house. Most of MAPPA's composite is done by different people. They don't have one particular style. And the style for Vinland Saga is going to remain consistent because the core staff is going to remain the same. I don't like MAPPA sound design. Again, what the fuck is MAPPA sound design? They don't have one sound director locked in their basement pumping out sound effects. That is not how it works. Again, if you think the sound design for Attack on Titan final season is bad, I don't know what to say because the sound director is the same as the previous seasons with which studios. What about the sound design? Sound design is different from sound direction, right? Yes. And the sound designer is also the same as the previous seasons. It's not like these people get a debuff when they enter MAPPA Studios. They're like, wait a minute, all my talent is gone. I can no longer do sound direction. Sound design is like the last thing that you should associate to a particular studio. Yes, David Production has good sound design. That's because they are using the same sound designers and the same sound directors for most of their projects. That's it. That's all it is. It's not because David Production is a person who is creating good sound effects. That is not how it works. I don't like MAPPA's blur filters. This is something that's a little bit more logical because composite is another thing that is usually outsourced. So if the director of photography who worked on Vinland Saga with Witch Studios also works with MAPPA, the composite is going to look exactly the same. There's not going to be shitty blur filters. It's going to look exactly the same as the other one. But if the director of photography changes, there's going to be difference in compositing. But depending on how much time they have, the compositing can be really good or bad. And Vinland Saga Season 2, just from the news we've gotten so far, seems to have a very good production schedule. The compositing has every right to be amazing. MAPPA is also very capable of composite. We saw it in Jujutsu Kaisen episode 9. The composite of that episode is really good. I absolutely loved the vibe of that episode. It was really good. And then in the next episode, episode 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen was dog shit in terms of composite because they probably ran out of time and they spent too much resources for the composite in episode 9. It is the same as animation. MAPPA staff is overworked. Well, yes, but actually no. Well, yes, because yeah, they are overworked, just like any other fucking studio in the anime industry. And not really because the people who are working on Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen and Jigokuraku are not going to be forced to work in Vinland Saga just because they're doing a new project now. That's not how it works. And it's not even because the core staff is different. No, it's because animation is mostly done by freelancers, except in the case of Kyoto Animation and Ufotable. There, the animation is mostly done in-house, and that's why their frequency of production is much less. They only release one anime a season, or maybe one anime a year. MAPPA is able to push out so many anime because all of these particular anime have different core staff members, and because it's just freelance animators working on these shows, it's not really going to affect animators in any negative way. The only people affected negatively are the junior animators who are mostly going to work in in-betweening. But that's just the case with the entire anime industry. Junior animators always get fucked. And it's not just the anime industry, it's literally any industry ever. The junior artist is going to get fucked. And even the in-betweening is sometimes outsourced. Of course, we have to feel bad for these animators, especially the in-house animators in MAPPA. But it's not as bad as you think. In fact, it's much worse in Cloverworks. It's a much smaller studio, and this season they're working on 3 shows. 2 of them look stunning, My Dress Up Darling and Akemi Sailor Uniform. And with the third one, which is Tokyo 24th Ward, I think the name is, the character designer and chief animation director of that show complained that the production has already crashed. The show has barely started airing and the production has already crashed. All of the anime industry is fucked. It's a terrible industry, but hopefully it'll get better eventually. The last and the worst myth, Attack on Titan the final season is a poorly animated CGI mess, and MAPPA is going to do the same thing with Vinland Saga. I can't wait to see the rumbling with thousands of CGI titans in Vinland Saga. This is really the stupidest thing you could say. Number one, I'm still mesmerized and in confusion on how MAPPA was even able to make Attack on Titan the final season a thing with the incredibly low amount of time they had. Yuichiro Hayashi, the director, is probably like a fucking time bender. He's definitely sacrificing his sleep. His eye bags are fucking purple in color. Next thing you know, he'll have RGB eye bags. And another thing, judging an entire studio just by one work, it is so retarded. It's like saying, oh man, My Hero Academia manga is amazing, but Studio Bones is just going to give it a terrible anime original ending because they did the same thing with Soul Eater, so obviously they're going to do the same thing with all their shows. Ufotable overworked their staff so much with God Eater that the production just completely fucking crashed. So I hope Ufotable drops Demon Slayer because they're going to do the same thing with Demon Slayer and Demon Slayer is going to crash and burn. I hope you understand how stupid this perspective is. Also, the studio doesn't matter thing, it's not even limited to just anime. Remember the Emoji Movie? What if I told you the same studio that did the Emoji Movie also did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Would you believe it? It's true, so you have to believe it. But yeah, the studio does not matter. It's not even anime, it is the core staff that's more important. Now let's go back to something I said before. I said the studio doesn't matter for the most part. I'll explain the most part now. Some studios are just really big, and a level of quality is expected out of them. For example, JC Staff's Railgun looks amazing. JC Staff's Konosuba looks amazing. So would you expect the same quality of animation for Index and Food Wars? No, because JC Staff is not a well-reputed company. What about Ufotable? Yes, you expect a level of quality from Ufotable. MAPPA, you expect a level of quality from MAPPA. These are studios that have quality control. That's the only reason that Attack on Titan the final season is at the very least cohesive. It's because MAPPA is doing it and a level of quality control is expected from them. Let's come to the next point now. Which studios is in extreme financial trouble? Yeah, I mean, it's self-explanatory, and I think Chibi Reviews made a video on it. He really explains the situation very well about the relationship between Witch Studios and Production IG. It's the relationship that's formed between the animation studio and the production committee. And it's a kind of shitty situation. And that's it. I'm sure if you watch the entire video, you have leveled up from being a NCAW into being a NCAW. If you're happy about leveling up, leave a like in this video. I'm going to be making more stuff like this in the future. If you want to see it, subscribe. If you dislike this video, tell me why in the comment section so that I can improve. And that's about it. Thanks for the views.